So, hello and welcome to the webinar. On behalf of Digistore and our guests from Avid, I want to thank you for taking a time out from your schedules to be with us. My name is Mark Richards and I'm the Marketing Manager for Digistore. So first off, let me introduce Digistore. This year marks Digistore's 30th year in business. In the beginning of our business, we worked with video production and post-production broadcast professionals to utilize new and emerging technologies to achieve their particular production goals. Over time, our skills, expertise, and vendor relationships have expanded, and we now address a wide range of application areas across many industries. And I've summarized on this slide some of the areas we address around remote workflow solutions, which would be relevant to the audience attending today. I'd encourage you to get in touch with us to discuss any technology or technical service related questions you have, whether it's things like, how do I manage my remote post-production teams, or what's the best way to implement cloud rendering for us, or anything else. We're here to help, so don't forget to get in touch. Of particular note, we've recently set up a couple of things that might be useful for you around this whole remote technology. We've set up a remote technologies test bed where you can connect via remote access to a virtualized high-end workstation in our Sydney HQ. A lot of customers are asking, what is this virtualized experience like? Can I use my remotely located high-end workstation from home? And those sorts of questions. So we've set this up and pre-installed software from Adobe, Avid, Blackmagic, Autodesk, and others for you to play with. It's available now, so you can try it. So contact us to book and check it out. Another thing around this area we've set up is a low-cost cloud rendering onboarding package, which includes everything required for you to get started with extending your animation and VFX rendering to the cloud. So it's low cost, easy to set up, and uses our expertise to help you get on board with this. Both of these are covered in the news sections of our Digistore website, so check it out and get in touch. We work with a range of leading vendors. Our close working relationships with vendor partners like Avid mean that we can utilize their staff and resources to work with us on solutions for your needs. Here's just a few relevant vendors we work with. Today, in our capacity as an Avid Elite reseller, we're introducing an exciting new solution called Avid Edit on Demand. The session today is we plan to stick to an hour for the event as it's getting late for us in Australia. I can see the sun setting behind me, and it's early morning in London and Amsterdam for the guys participating there as well. So we'll stick to an hour and we'll get through it all. That's the agenda we intend to cover. Of course, we can't answer all the questions or address all the specific workflows and requirements for each of you in this session. So I'd encourage you to contact Digistore, your Digistore account manager, or Digistore generally, so that we can help you further. Here are our main contact and communications channel details, but you'll also have my email address from your webinar registration reminder email. So feel free to contact me directly at any time. Okay, let's get the show on the road. I'd like to introduce our first presenter, Jason Cowan. Jason has worked in the television and broadcast industry for over 25 years and has experience in production, post-production, cloud post-production, and technology deployment. He's worked on global projects including the London 2012 Olympics, FIFA World Cups, and the 2018 European Championships. More recently, Jason joined the Avid Cloud and SaaS practice team and leads the global business development initiatives for Avid Edit on Demand solution, which we're covering here today. Jason, feel free to steal my screen.
Can you see my screen, Mark?
I can indeed.
Great. So, hi everyone from London, Jason Cowan. So, I'm going to just talk through Edit on Demand. So, I get quite a lot of feedback from customers thinking that EOD is what we refer to as EOD, so Avid Edit on Demand, is Avid's response to the COVID crisis, which is not necessarily the case. This actually starts from around 2017 when we started to first look at Media Composer and what we called the Nexus in Texas workflow, and that was demoed at IBC actually 2016. We had really good response from customers that were looking at cloud-based editorial, but actually not really talking about cloud-based, talking about more remote editorial needs. So we started test driving with a small group of customers. And in 2018, we actually moved the Nexus file system natively to run in Azure. We started again a handful of major brand POCs, and we started to see that there was a lot of interest around Media Central-based workflows for enterprise customers for production and archive. And in 2019, we actually started to deploy some of these workflows with customers, and we started to work on a self-service model as opposed to the large amount of PS that's required to set up a much larger deployment. And in 2019 was the first, 2019 IBC was the first time that we actually showed Edit on Demand as a fully operational service. And what we did is we set up an early access program to be able to manage and work through customers that were interested in trialing Edit on Demand, and we started to do that in January and February of this year. And we worked with customers across EMEA and North America, production companies, post houses, rental facilities is where we thought that the best product fit would be. COVID hit around March, and all of a sudden our interest in EOD just shot through the roof, and we had literally hundreds of inquiries of customers wanting to be able to trial Edit on Demand. So what we did is we pivoted and moved a whole bunch of resources to be able to circle around the solution and be able to bring this to market as quickly as we could, but still working very closely with customers to ensure that we had the right feature sets and so forth. So to date, we've had over 100 deployments of Edit on Demand. We also have had trial deployments for Edit on Demand, and then we've had a number of customers that have moved from a trial directly into a paid engagement and into active productions. So what is Edit on Demand? So this is, let's call it our entry-level software as a service, self-service offer from Avid. So this is everything you need, which is the Nexus and Media Composer running in the cloud for editorial purposes. It's a bundle service, and I'll explain shortly what that means. And you can subscribe to this, and what you do, what you would get is a digital product. So you get a redemption code with a system ID that you auto deploy through your My Avid account, and it goes away and deploys everything for you. And then you would get an email to be able to self-administer from there. But this is a self-service auto deployment solution that you would purchase on a month-to-month basis. You can commit to multiple months, but you don't need to commit to multiple months. You can do this on a month-to-month basis, take it on 1 month, and then decide at the end of that month that you want to renew, new redemption code, and renew it from there as well. We have had a lot of feedback from customers that a lot of production companies, post facilities, rental facilities don't necessarily work on a month-to-month basis. They work on a weekly model. We will be releasing weekly models within the coming months as well, but at the moment it is month-to-month. So as I said, this is a complete virtual production environment, and what we are trying to address with Edit on Demand are typical remote collaborative workflows, work from home requirements, overspill or burst capacity for on-prem workflows, time-sensitive deployments, and typically what we're seeing from customers is the use on ad hoc events, long-form productions, and of course short-form productions as well. So what is included within your Edit on Demand subscription? So firstly, starting with your monthly per seat. So per seat, not to be confused with a user. A per seat is your virtual machine running Media Composer. So your Media Composer running on a virtual machine in the cloud. That is a seat. If you, any bundle that you purchase from Avid, even if it's one seat with, let's say, 1 terabyte of storage and so forth, you can still add up to 60 users to that account. So any bundle that you purchase, you can add up to 60 users. So with that seat, you get 174 hours of virtual machine time, so uptime on that virtual machine. So that's pretty much an 8-hour day, 5 days a week. So we have had quite a lot of that. Obviously, editors work a lot longer than that. This is to help with the introduction price point. Is the price point, to be able to get to the price point that we're starting with, we've decided to go with the 174 hours. Storage is configurable. You can add or take away storage. You can also add or take away seats depending on your production budget as well, or your production schedule, let me say. So if you have a production schedule that you require X number of seats in month 1, less seats in month 2, more seats in month 3, that is something that you are completely able to do. So you're able to add more storage as you go, or reduce storage, add more users, or reduce storage on a month-to-month basis as well. What we are using as part of the service and what is included in your subscription is the File Catalyst licensing. So File Catalyst is the only way for you to be able to upload or download your content into the Nexus and into the Nexus workspaces. So File Catalyst is included, as is your Teradici licensing. So we use Teradici PC over IP to be able to connect from your local machine to the virtual machine in the cloud, and the Teradici licensing is included as well, as is your Avid support. So you are not expected to purchase a separate support agreement. Your support is included. And under the early access program, which we foresee running at least for the remainder of 2020, we are offering no overages. So no overage charges. And what that means is, when we just spoke about the 174 hours, what you commit to in the beginning of the month is what you're going to pay. If you overrun those 174 hours, or you also get a certain amount of egress to be able to download your content from your workspace in the cloud as well. If you overrun your egress, or if you overrun your editing hours, we do not retrospectively bill you at the end of the month for those overruns. So your production managers or whoever owns the budget can be set at ease that they are not going to get a variable bill at the end of that month. What they've committed to in the beginning of the month is what they're going to pay. If you took a multi-month contract and you consistently overran these overages, we would then ask our partner to be able to upgrade you to a larger plan. So just at a high level, what this looks like, you've got your Nexus file system running on high performance blob storage. This is all with our Microsoft, Avid's Microsoft partnership. This is all Azure based and only Azure based. So you've got the Nexus running on the Nexus file system running on your high performance blob storage. As I've said before, File Catalyst is the only way to be able to get your content in and out securely of your Nexus workspace. You've got your Media Composer licensing running on your virtual machine, which is a very high-powered virtual machine. You've got Teradici, last PC over IP client, that is enabling you to be able to use your remote desktop, your existing Mac, your existing Windows machine that you may have. We have had some customers that have been using Zero clients. So for example, like an Amulet Zero client with really, really good experience. I won't go through too much detail on the portal because Danny will show this as part of his demo, but this is your existing My Avid account. The Edit on Demand portal is not something different. This is your existing My Avid account. So typical customer workflows and customers that have been using EOD to date, this is not an exhaustive list of everybody that is signed up and using for active productions. This is a list. This is some of the examples that we have existing marketing and PR agreements with, that we are allowed to obviously talk about their workflows and their work that they've been doing with Avid Edit On Demand. And I'll go into a bit more detail around the Gorilla case study and their use of EOD. But this is a traditional offline-based workflow, so a proxy-based workflow, and I'll talk about this shortly. Jarrett Creative is a production company based out of New York, and theirs was actually a high-res workflow where they were uploading the original source of finished programs, and they were cutting those down for a VOD network. And then actually we've had quite a large interest from our enterprise customers. And somebody like Televisa has been using EOD for soap operas, and France TV, who are actually in their 5th month now, they started in April, excuse me, they're in their 5th month of utilizing EOD for documentaries and magazine shows. So just looking a little bit more deeply into the Gorilla case study. Gorilla, a post house based in Cardiff in Wales, actually trialed this in the first week of March, and actually before we went into a lockdown within the UK, and they trialed it for 2 days and realized that this is exactly what they needed for this upcoming production. The production was a 6-part, 24-minute episode series for the Welsh broadcaster S4C. They had 3 editors working from home, and they had 5 terabytes of storage. And the workflow for them was ingesting all the camera original raw material into their nearline, transcoding to a GNX36, uploading the project files via Fire Catalyst, and this was all done internally within the post house, and then up from the post house, and you would have the editors working from home remotely, accessing that. And then when it came to exporting sequences, upload the project in the final bin, they'd do an AMA relink back on prem, and then they would move into a finishing based workflow from there. I do have a video, and I just want to make sure that the audio is going to play. So let me just
The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, just moments ago announced the country will go into a complete lockdown. Most staff will be working from home.
Corona happened. Every edit suite in the building that's currently running needs to be out and about and being installed in everyone's house. To be honest, I don't think I've ever done anything quite like this.
Gorilla TV has been going for about 20 years now in Cardiff. We have 3 sites. We now have round about 100 Avid systems. We pretty much do all genres of post.
So Avid approached us with a new facility they have, Edit On Demand, which is basically cloud editing and Cloud Nexus storage all combined into one service. So we did a week's demo, thought it was a fantastic new product, absolutely brilliant. Little did we know we'd actually be using it for real thanks to Corona. We needed editors to work remotely, quickly.
Everything pretty much happened in a week. We had lots of our clients just asking for us to move to editors' homes.
And Avid Edit On Demand from a technical aspect was no different really than any one of our edit suites here.
The editors didn't know that the Nexus was in the cloud. They actually thought they were remotely accessing into our system on-prem.
They said the responsiveness and the power and flexibility it gave them to do their edits pretty much anywhere they wanted.
Connecting to Edit On Demand was easy and straightforward. It's lightning fast.
In Wales and the UK in general, we don't have that great connectivity at home, yet everything works very well with the technology that we're using. We need to collaborate without geographical boundaries.
I would definitely recommend Edit On Demand. You forget that it's a virtual PC, you forget that you're streaming media from the cloud. It's fantastic.
From a remote working point of view, I can't think of any other facility that does what Edit On Demand does as well as it does.
I'd now like to introduce Danny Hollingsworth, who will provide the Avid On Demand live demonstration for us. Danny's been at Avid for 6 years now and is a pre-sales manager and video solutions specialist. He's currently working with many of the region's largest broadcasters and post-production facilities to design and implement both on-premise and remote workflows. Welcome from Amsterdam, Danny.
Cheers, Mark. Thanks very much. I'll just grab the screen here as well. So thanks everyone for joining. I think what we'll do is I'll just kind of dive in, and I think you kind of hopefully got a little bit of a sense of, what what Edit on Demand is about, and the guys at Gorilla were just in the midst of telling you about how great their experience with it was. Let me just share my screen here. Mark, can you see that screen?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. And so really what I wanted to do is we'll move away from PowerPoint for a bit, and I'll just show you, what it really looks like, what it really feels like from a user's perspective and a customer perspective as well. And then maybe we'll jump back to Jason towards the end, and we can kind of pick up on some of the other bits that he wants to do, and then obviously we'll do some Q&A as well. So really I suppose let's talk about it from going from complete zero to having a system up and running and available to you. I'm just on the Avid website right now, and you can see on the top left I have my Avid account. And so what we would do is, if I go to my Avid account here, what we would do is we will, effectively when you choose your plan, you get an activation code just like any other Avid product. You apply that code, and then you start going through the process of deploying your Edit on Demand system. And the great thing here is all of the deployment is completely automated. So it's very, very low touch point. So really the only things that you're picking on the way through is, you're going to name your system, you're going to choose where that system is. And I think when we get back to Jason, we'll talk a little bit about data centers and finding your nearest data center. And I suppose the most important thing there when you're picking a data center is obviously the latency. So you'll be choosing a data center within a region. So we'll talk about that maybe a little bit when Jason comes back on later as well. And then you also be able to choose a Media Composer version as well. So we now have a few different versions. When we first released this, it was a 2019 version of Media Composer, which is obviously our latest and greatest UI. We now obviously have a 2020 version. And we also knew some customers were needing to maybe collaborate with some existing versions they already have. So we also have a 2018 version as a choice as well. So if you're wanting the old UI, you're able to do that today as well. And then once you've deployed that, you basically hit go, and then you wait. And today it's a sort of around 4 hours, and then you're kind of ready to go. We are sort of constantly improving that time from kind of hitting deploy to actually being able to then get into the system and start working for the first time. Once it's deployed though, if you go to My Products, it's just another product that sits underneath the other products you might have. So if you've got Media Composer, if you've got Pro Tools, you'll also be able to see your Avid Edit on Demand system here as well. And then we've got a link here to take you through to the portal, which I actually already have open at the top here. So if we just jump over. So this is the Edit on Demand portal. I can see I've had a couple of different subscriptions, so you can have multiple subscriptions on the go as well. My currently active one here is a 2-seat subscription. So that's 2 virtual machines running Media Composer in the cloud, and with up to 1 terabyte of storage. So this is a fairly small setup, but enough obviously for me to run my demo here. So you can see we get a good overview of the system, the amount of storage I've used, the amount of storage total that I have, also the amount of data download. And that, as Jason said, resets kind of each month. So each month in this particular setup, I can do up to 1 terabyte of what we call download. So, when you're wanting to pull stuff from the cloud back down to a local system somewhere. And then that resets, that kind of quota resets each month. And as Jason said, the really important thing there is if you kind of go over that, if there's some overage, and we're not going to charge you within that month. So you're not, it's not like a hard limit. You don't get to 1 terabyte and then suddenly it will just completely cut off, and that's it, you'll never be able to use it. Same for edit hours as well. So the edit hours, I think this is a pretty important one. It's the number of hours that the Media Composer machine is running. So if you're not using it, then obviously we would tell you to maybe turn it off. But if you forget, as we know, often It's easy to just walk away from a virtual machine. You kind of go grab a coffee, maybe you get pulled into another meeting and suddenly it's been on for several hours. We also have the ability to time those out as well. So we tend to time those out after a certain period of time. So you're not going to have a media composer running for days and just eating up all of your edit time. So then we jump over to the users. So this is how you administer the system. It's one of the really important things to us with Edit on Demand is to have a really lightweight, kind of light touch system to be able to deploy, but then also use. So if you want to then go and add users, and Mark, I'm going to add you today. So if I go in here and make a new user, so you can see I can either add one user, I could go and add multiple users at the same time if I want to, and if I hit submit, you'll notice it doesn't just say active, it actually says pending. And what this is doing is actually deploying that user across all of the available systems underneath this. So if you think we've got Nexus storage, so it needs to create a user there, it will create users for the machines as well. So there's a few places where it needs to go and deploy that user and start building out some credentials. If you're actually the administrator, then obviously you would then take the default password here and share the username and password with the person or individual that needs to be able to access the system. And then the first time they log in, they kind of get requested to change their password and obviously build a more secure password for themselves. So whilst that's pending, you see that takes a little moment to activate. If I go to the system here, this is effectively the credentials you'd be sharing out with your team. So this would be installers for the Teradici client. So this is the software client that enables you to connect to the Media Composer. Obviously the remote desktop tool, host address to be able to actually connect to it. And obviously the file catalyst address as well. And if I go to the next page here, this is the file catalyst web page. You'll notice on the top, I also have, the first time you log in, it will actually deploy and install a little agent on your machine to be able to connect through the web page. And very simply, it's a very simple tool. Left side is my local system, right side is the remote Nexus. So you're actually uploading directly to the Nexus as well. And then you would quite simply, if you want to take something and upload it, take your pick, pick multiple items and then upload them to the system. And as Jason was saying, what you want to do as part of your workflow is, there's lots of different possibilities here, but, using the guys at Gorilla as an example, they were using the Edit on Demand system very much as, editorial. And so they had lots and lots of high res. They generated all their kind of transcodes, kind of prepped a lot of their edit before they uploaded. And then they were uploading the DNX 36 content up to the cloud. And then quite simply, all they have to do then is just bring down the project file. So their download data is actually very, very minimal because they'll bring down the project and they'll do the relinking locally on one of their edit clients. That's just one way of working with Edit on Demand. We also have customers that have it's the kind of different goal where they'll put everything up there straight away and get people working with the high-res material very quickly as well. So there's lots of different ways of using it, lots of different possible workflows. This is also the same tool that you'll use to download as well. So if you want to, if you've got that finished project file, you'll be able to browse the Nexus system and download that project file from here as well, or whatever pieces of material you want to download from your EOD system. So with that, I'm not going to waste any more time on sort of some of the admin pieces. I know it's very important, but I suppose what everyone wants to talk about is the Media Composer piece. So you can see here, I'm actually on, I'll just pull this down. You can see I'm on my Mac laptop on my MacBook Pro here. And I'm going to go and connect in using the PC over IP client, which I have installed into my Media Composer. Now, obviously, I have a lot of different demo systems doing lots of different things here. So I've got lots of different possibilities. If you're a user, you would just have one choice that you've deployed on your PC over IP client. If I go and log into my EOD system here. And these are the same credentials that you would have set up that time when you built that user that I mentioned. So now if I go and log in with my username and password here, and I go and log in, you'll notice I said to you earlier on, I had 2 machines in this deployment. And guess what? I can see 2 machines inside my PC over IP agent. I also get a status of those machines as well. So one of them is stopped, one of them is ready. So the ready one means that the machine is on, the stop one means that the machine is off. You can start from an off state. So if I click on that and connect to it, it'll actually then boot the VM for me as well. It takes a few minutes to kind of get the VM up and running and actually get into the media composer. I suppose your other question is, if I can see the two media composers, what if someone is in that media composer? Well, if there was someone in a media composer, there's a third state, which is to say that someone's actually, in session and connected. So if you see in session, it means that someone's in there and actually doing something. So you don't want to connect into their machine. So this one that's ready, it's just on and available for me. So I'm just going to click it and then go and click connect. And so what you'll hopefully see is my desktop transform from a Mac desktop into the Windows virtual machine that I'm connecting to. Give it a moment. And there you go. So I'm straight into Media Composer, exactly where I left it just before we joined the call. And just to prove the point, I'll just minimize it. You can see this is the Windows desktop. This is not my local machine. I'm connecting to this in a data center. And it's not just a virtualized Media Composer. It is also, as Jason was saying, a Nexus system as well. So if you think I've got multiple Media Composers on here connecting to Nexus, I think the really important message is, I'm sure many of you on this call maybe have similar workflows in place already on premise. All of those things that you know about, project sharing, bin locking, working with multiple Media Composer clients on a Nexus environment kind of all exist here as well. One thing you'll notice in the one with a keen eye is I'm logged into this Nexus, and right now I have one workspace. So today it is one single workspace, and there's actually very minimal kind of touch of the administrator. So I just make a user, everyone gets access to that workspace today. That is absolutely something that we're looking to feedback from customers very quickly. Was obviously I need more workspaces. I also want to be able to give certain users read, write, and administer the workspace like I would my on-prem Nexus today. And that's absolutely something that's coming. And maybe Jason, when we get back to Jason later on, we can talk a little bit about that as well. So I've got my workspace connected and I have my Media Composer. And I'm not going to spend too long here showing you Media Composer because I'm sure many of you will know it already. But you can see here I have a Media Composer, very responsive. Obviously, I'm on a Zoom call, so it's probably, I don't know how laggy it is for you guys, but if I hit play, I don't know, I've got my audio sharing, but you'll see a bit of playback. I doubt you could hear that because I don't think the audio is sharing, but you can see it's a Media Composer. I get access to all of everything in my project. I mentioned bin locking already. If you've got someone with a bin already open, or I've taken a lock on a bin, you can see that as well. So I've got a locked bin here as well. So in terms of the workflow, at this point, it's Media Composer. It's what you would expect to do. Go and do all your editorial pieces. Obviously, we've got Teradici PC over IP, very, very kind of high quality remote desktop technology, and also very kind of color, pixel accurate and color accurate as well. So it's definitely one of the better remote technologies out there. And we've had very good feedback around that, but not just the actual remote capability, actually getting in and looking at the screen as well, but actually the performance of the Media Composer is something that we're, we've had very good feedback as well. So I don't want to get too deep into the weeds of, how the Azure machines work, but we have this particular machine is what we would call an NV12 machine. That's just how they kind of scale the different machines in Azure. So it's very powerful. And in fact, the feedback has been very positive about it in terms of actually it's often better than machines that a lot of clients will have under the desk today. So I would say, one of the early fears around kind of cloud and cloud editing is like, is the machine going to be, able to cope with multiple streams of, video? Is it going to be able to cope with, effects work? I think we've kind of proven that to many customers now, time and time over. And so, yeah, I think good feedback about the performance, good feedback about the way it works. Obviously, we're looking to try and expand out into other regions now. We've done a lot in Europe and in the US now, and we're looking to be able to kind of bring this to more parts of the world as well. So I think with that, Jason, I don't know if you're back. I've been stalling a little bit for you, but is your computer back alive?
Yeah.
All right,
let's hope so.
So maybe we'll jump back over and you can kind of give us some more of the detail on and how we actually deploy this and some of the other use cases as well.
Can you see my screen, Danny?
I can.
You are.
Can.
So apologies for that. Obviously, the rehearsals had all ran wonderfully smoothly. That video from Gorilla, if anyone's actually looking for it, I'll probably put a link in the chat, or maybe Mark will be able to direct you to it, but it's available on the Avid's public YouTube channel as well. And we will be having, for this case study, France Television, towards the end of this month, we will have a full case study video and material and PR around their use of EOD as well. So not hugely different workflow for France Television as to Gorilla, except quite a lot bigger. It's grown. It started with 6 media composers, 25 terabytes of storage. There's a few slight differences here where they've used quite a lot of third-party plugins. So they've been using Boris FX, so Continuum and Sapphire, for example. One of the more interesting ones, which I'll talk about shortly, is also their Zoom workflow. What we found is that most customers require a collaboration review tool. So let's call it what we term an OTS, like over the shoulder solution. And what we will be building as part of EOD in the not too distant future is an integrated over the shoulder solution. But in what we are doing as of today is you can use third-party conferencing tools like Zoom or Teams. And in France Television's case, what we've done is we've actually installed the NDR tools from NewTek on the virtual machine, and actually using the video output from the media composer into the video input into Zoom, basically. And then you would have your reviewer and your editors join separately. And we found that the video experience is really, really good. And we've got a number of customers that are using this workflow as collaboration tool currently. So those are the two case studies I wanted to just just highlight. Some of what Danny was just picking up on. What Danny was saying is with regards to the Nexus and the single workspace. We do know that the single workspace is not ideal. In fact, most customers that have moved from a trial to an active engagement, we've installed, we have configured multiple workspace ability for them and set up the workspaces, set up the amount of storage, done the permissions for users. We know that's not ideal, but we are doing that at the moment, so it's not a blocker. It will be part of our next release, and we anticipate that release coming out at the end of September, early October, where it would be exactly the same as what you have in your Nexus console currently, and you would be able to configure those workspaces and set your user permissions yourself without us having to do that manually for you. So Mark, I think that's where we wanted to end it and pick up for discussion from there.
Fantastic. I'll just share my screen. So I guess the question from here is, if you want to get on board with Avid On Demand, what Avid Edit On Demand, what do you need to do from here? So currently it's in early access release. So, sorry, just let me organize my screen. So if you're interested in getting on board, the program's open to qualified customers with real production need for Edit On Demand. So that allows Digistore and Avid to work closely with a handful of early adopter customers to fine-tune Edit On Demand for our region and make sure that it perfectly meets or exceeds the expectations of a fully cloud-native virtual production studio for Australian customers. So if you want to apply through us, we'll manage your access request for you and assist in analysing your requirements and suitability, and then work with Avid to get you set up with a trial prior to commercial commitment. So those details up there are on the screen, so you can apply via email or call us directly or complete the form on the website and get in touch. If you've gone through this and you're looking at remote workflows and you feel that maybe Avid Edit On Demand doesn't look like the right fit for you, but you'd like to discuss other remote options and potential workflows, then also get in touch and we can explore those together. We have a bit of time to move on to question and answer. I know that there has been a number of questions asked, so if you open your Q&A panel, you'll see a number of answered questions there. And there are a couple of entered questions that people have put in. And I wondered, Jason, whether you wanted to lead the Q&A from here and start it off.
Some of the open questions, Mark, that have come up, what's the minimum bandwidth requirements for client connections? So at the moment, what we have benchmarked and what we have tested to date, and just out of the 100-odd trials that we've done, we've had well over 200 editors and more that we using Edit on Demand or trialing Edit on Demand. And from a bandwidth perspective, we are suggesting 20 to 25 megabits download speed for EOD, and let's call this a typical layout. So a typical Media Composer layout with maybe a dual screen 1920 by 1080 monitors or a single 4K monitor, typically around 25 megabits is what we require for that. If you want to look towards full screen playback, then we're suggesting 30 to 35 megabits download is recommended. The other key thing that Danny mentioned is your latency. So it's not only about your download bandwidth, it's also about your latency, which is obviously your distance to the data center. So what we suggest is 50 milliseconds and below. If you're having, our experience to date is 50 milliseconds and below, you shouldn't experience any drop frames, scrubbing issues, audio sync issues. You should be pretty good with that. We have had customers that have actually worked beyond 50 millisecond latency, and they've been okay, they've been happy with that, but our suggestion is 50 milliseconds and below, and 20 to 25 megabits and above.
I think just to add to that, Jason, just from my experience of kind of having used it for a little while now as well, is I think the important thing is there's not like a hard break there. So if like you said, if you're in a region where you maybe have a little bit more latency, or the bandwidth is maybe not quite there, it is scalable. So that's what we recommend as the optimum. If you're kind of on the edges there, and depending on what you're doing, obviously if you're a very, very fast editor and you want kind of performance and that really kind of under the desk type experience, then you want those optimum sort of settings. But if you just need to go in there and maybe mark up a couple of shots, do some add some markers, logging, things like that, top and tail something, then if you've got higher latency, then you can still definitely do some stuff there. It doesn't just break, it doesn't just completely stop once you get over 50 milliseconds.
Another question has come up around, is it possible to continuously back up or to your local machine? The answer to that is no. I mean, if you would then have to download via File Catalyst if you wanted to do that. Your media within the local data center that you are hosting is copied. There are 3 copies of that. So I think you could be relatively peace of mind that it's pretty secure, and there's multiple copies of it within that Azure data center. The other thing to note is that we on our backlog are looking at, and we will have nearline storage available. This is all online storage currently. We are moving, and we will make available nearline storage as part of the EOD solution, but that is more of an H1 2021 as part of our roadmap, not something within the next quarter to 2 quarters. But we will start to offer nearline options with EOD as well. SDI output for broadcast monitor, the simple answer is currently no. We have had quite a number of requests for a broadcast monitor, which has a lot of editors originally had said pre the COVID that we just couldn't possibly work from home without a reference monitor or broadcast monitor. A lot of those same editors, when needing to work from home, that absolute have to has become, well, we can potentially work without that. So yes, we are working. It is on on a reference monitor solution. It would probably be an integrated solution as part of with one of our alliance partners, and it's something that we have in the works. But I would say that is probably an H1 2021 for EOD. It's not something within the immediate short term. The big pieces for us within the remainder of 2020 are the Nexus workspace management. Is a big part of what we will be delivering in the short term, and then there are additional features that will be coming out that we will announce within the coming months for Q4 as well.
I think that probably ties quite nicely into the next question there, Jason, which is, can I have multiple screens? And the answer is absolutely yes. So the Teradici client does support multi-screen setup. So if you've got 2 monitors, obviously I'm demoing on Zoom, so I didn't want to spread out across my 2 monitors and have you guys have a really small screen. So you can have multiple monitors, 2 screens. And obviously you can do full screen playback within those as well. So in the Media Composer, if you want to go full screen, you can. Just be aware that's when we get the big bandwidth spike, because that's really when you're pushing a lot of pixels, because everything in the screen is moving. So the way that the PCIe technology works is it's prioritizing moving parts of the frame. So what you'll find is if you have a smaller player, your bandwidth would be much lower. If you go full screen, then we are starting to talk about 25 and beyond that for kind of full frame of HD.
Mm-hmm. One of the other, just picking up on what Danny said about the virtual machines that we are using the very high-powered NV12. Editor feedback to date has been fantastic on how responsive, and what we're also looking to do within the early part of the new year is being able to offer a second tier of virtual machine as well, which would then potentially come at a different price point, and that would be maybe something which is more directed towards a proxy-based workflow. So like we give guidance on on-prem hardware and how many streams and so forth you could use, we will be issuing the same, and then we would have a multi-tier of virtual machines that you would be able to choose from as part of EOD. But that's in the works for the early part of 2021.
There's one more question that's been entered in the chat window. Marcus Eckerman has asked, can virtual workstations be Mac-based or is it PC only?
So your VM in the cloud is 100% is PC, but so it's a Windows machine that you would be accessing and using, but that doesn't stop you from obviously using your on-prem or your local machine being a Mac, but you are remoting into a Windows machine.
Sure, we would if we could.
Yes, unfortunately, there aren't Mac-based virtual machines really.
That's it for the open questions. We do have a bit more time for more questions. So if anyone feels like typing any other questions they want to ask in the Q&A panel, we can get to those. During the sessions, I know Jason answered a couple. I just wonder whether there are any questions that are answered during the panel session that perhaps are representative of things that often get asked. Is there any that came up, Jason, that you answered that you thought are worth refreshing to people, those answers?
The one around we have existing Amulet 0 clients. Yes, we will also be issuing guidance in the not too distant future on supported devices. But at the moment, we have had customers use typically different flavors of Amulet 0 clients successfully, but we haven't put out an official paper from Avid. We will be doing so on suggested hardware that you can use. But yes, maybe just it would be a case of let Digistore know what you are using, and we'll make that as part of the POC.
Yeah, I suppose just to touch on that, Jason, sorry. One of the questions was sort of asking about whether you needed that Teradici hardware. I think it's important just to reiterate that you don't have to have that. That's just one way of connecting. You can, as I did today, you've got your laptop, whether it's PC, whether it's a Mac, as long as you can run the Teradici software agent, which is just simply a download, then you can connect. So you don't have to have specific hardware in order to be able to connect.
Yeah.
One thing I would say, do recommend is, if you really are editing on this, is obviously having a wired connection to your internet is definitely, you know, something that I would recommend. You get, you know, much kind of more consistent experience. You can work over the wireless, and I'll be honest with you, I've done plenty of demos and it's fine and it's no problem at all. But I would say just for that consistency, I do recommend just having a kind of a wired Ethernet connection if you can.
So one of the questions, Mark, that's just come through about what has the take-up been in Australia? I mean, this for us is more of we starting that journey for Australia with our partners Digistore. The EOD as of a week or so ago is now available in the Australia East data center. And so we haven't deployed EOD specifically within Australia to date. We have deployed other Avid cloud-based solutions that have worked well within Australia, but not specifically EOD. But EOD is now available in Australia East.
There's a question about pricing. Is that can we give an overview of how that operates and ranges and things?
So pricing, we do have available pricing as of to date, which you would be able to get through Digistore. For us, the pricing is based on the bundle that you purchase up front, and then the add-ons that you add to that. So how many additional seats that you want to add, how much additional storage they add. So it's quite difficult to give a per user price because it completely depends on your users versus storage versus egress. We have come up with pretty simple models to be able to build that pricing so that it's not a complex process to be able to price this out. However, I would say that as a US dollar comparison, at the moment, what we are saying, it's a range depending on how much storage versus users that you require. And at the moment, it starts at about $1,500 per user per month, and it can range up to about $2,500 per user per month. But that completely depends on how much storage you require. We are working on, as I've said, additional tiers of virtual machine to make available as well. So that will help in the future with regards to the pricing that we have. But at the moment, we're starting with the highest possible storage requirement, performance. We're starting with the highest possible virtual machine for the Media Composer. So we're looking to work backwards from that. So what you are getting is you're getting storage that is equivalent or better than SSD performance that you would get with an on-prem Nexus. And as Danny's mentioned previously, the virtual machine running the Media Composer is a very, very high specification as well. So Australia East, where is that? So that is the Sydney-based Azure data center.
And then the last question, and then we'll answer that, and then we'll wrap up from there. Are you looking at supporting education users down the track?
Definitely. We've had a very large interest from educational institutions struggling to see how they were going to go back into semesters where a lot of their journalism or media studies courses are going to be remote. So we've had a large number of interest in Europe and from the US from educational institutions. We currently don't have edu pricing for EOD. We are working on that actively, and I hope to be able to have some news on that in the not too distant future. But this is a case of that it's not only something that needs to come from Avid, because we are working with our partners as well. So we are delivering a full service as an EOD, but it's very different from Avid selling a typical on-prem solution, be that a Nexus hardware, because there are third-party products that are involved from Teradata and File Catalyst. And of course, there's the Microsoft Azure component, which is a large portion of the solution as well. So it's not as simple as Avid coming up with an edu pricing model. We need to work with all our partners to be able to offer edu pricing as well. So that is definitely in the works. And we see education as a very, very a key part of EOD's strategy going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Just one thing on there, I suppose, just to maybe reiterate around the how do people get access to a test setup or a trial? I think we might just want to make that kind of clear again as well.
Yeah, so you need to apply through Digistore to, and we'll manage that access application through Avid to set up that trial for you, given that it's an appropriate appropriate application for EOD. So at this stage, it's something that it's an early access program that will manage the access to that trial for you. Sometime down the track, it'll be a generally commercially available solution open to all. Okay, so thank you all. Just let me share my screen once more. Thank you everyone for joining us at the event today, and especially thank you to our presenters, Jason and Danny. You did a great job, guys. Thank you so much for getting up early and joining us from your respective parts of the world. As a reminder, you can see Digistore's contact details on the screen, so please don't hesitate to contact us or me personally if you've got any questions. I can also forward questions to our presenters on your behalf if needed. As I mentioned, this conference was recorded, and we'll be emailing a link of the recording to all registrations, all those who registered in the coming days once we get it finalized and uploaded. So that's all for the webinar for now. We look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you all. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Danny, once more. And we look forward to talking to you again soon.